Hey everyone, it's Steph from Adventure Physio here. I've just been for a ride. I got back maybe an hour ago, feeling pretty stiff and sore. I was out for a few hours and my bike setup's probably not ideal at the moment, so my back is really feeling it. So I was going to go through this stretching anyway, and I thought, why not invite you along with me? We'll be focusing mostly on back movement, and then we'll also be getting into a bit of calf and leg stretching as well. So I hope you enjoy. We won't really need any equipment for this, just a mat. I'm going to start lying on your back with some gentle knee rolls. So simple, so easy, so nice. Just really take your time with it. You don't need to rush these at all. Just sort of feeling for any stickiness, any tightness, any stretching. If you find something that feels good, just hang out there for a little while. If it feels good to go through it a little bit more quickly, you're welcome to as well. It's really what feels good for your body. And then we're going to put one leg on top of the other knee. So I've got my right ankle on my left knee right now, and that's just taking me down into a little bit more of a stretch on my left side. And you're going to swap to the other. So your knees go to the left, your left ankle on top of your right knee, and then just hang out there. You can use this as a little bit of like a self-diagnostic test as well. I can really feel that my right side is so much stiffer than my left side. Go back to the other side again if you want, or if you're just really loving the stretch, feel free to hang out there. You're going to take this onto your side into a book opener. You can put a pillow underneath your head if you want, or a rolled up towel. There's a couple of options. You can put something between your knees like a foam roller or a towel if you want. You can have your knees stacked one on top of the other. I like to straighten my bottom leg and put my top leg over the top. It isolates it to your mid back a little bit more. Then take a breath in and breathe out and open the page of your book. Keeping an eye on your hand the whole time so it gets your neck into that rotation as well. It's not just your mid back. And then coming back. Breathing out to open. You can always put your other hand on your knee to try and lock it in and isolate that movement even more. Adds to the stretch a little bit. If you're really feeling it, you can straighten that leg. It gives you a bit of a nerve tensioner, helps stretch the leg a little bit as well. If you find you're getting a few cracks, then that's good, if it feels good. If you feel like it's actually quite painful or like coming this far into the stretch doesn't feel good for you, you can always put a pillow behind your back here so that you can't actually go that far into the stretch. And then from there, I'm going to take this into more of a shoulder stretch. So it's still going to rotate through my thoracic, reaching. You want to keep your knee locked down for this one, reaching forward with that top arm and then tracing a circle around. Trying to keep active the whole time. So you're really stretching up towards the whatever it is behind you. For me, it's the mirror. So as you're coming back, stretching forward, keeping that whole shoulder blade active. And then relaxing as you come down. Try and add some breathing into it. So again, breathing out. Breathing in once you get here. Breathing out to move. Feels pretty amazing to add this shoulder movement into this thoracic stretch. And they're pretty linked. Your shoulder and your thoracic affect each other quite a bit. Just going to roll over to the other side and repeat. So starting with the book opener. Breathing out to open. If this is feeling a bit much on your shoulder, another option is to do it as a bow and arrow stretch. So it's like you're pulling on the bow and then you're letting it go. It could be a little bit nicer on the shoulder if you're feeling a bit yuck. If you want to add a bit of something else in here, a bit of strength, you can hold on to a resistance band in each hand, and as you're pulling, you're giving a little bit of like muscle activation, which can feel really nice and help things to relax even more as you let go of that muscle activation. I'm going to move into that shoulder movement. Side's always really stuck for me, so you might see that it's a bit different to the other side. And don't forget to breathe. So the next stretch that we're going to do is going to be cycling between a child's pose and an upward dog. So you're kind of cycling in between your back being in a bent, flexed position, like it is here. I've got my knees wide. I feel really comfortable with knees wide, and I'm not normally someone who enjoys knees being close together, but give it a shot. You might enjoy your knees being close together more. It's really an individual thing based on your anatomy, your restrictions. For me, this is always a winner. So this is called our child's pose. And we're going to go from there into either a cobra stretch, where you're stretching through the bottom of your low back, or into this more intense upward dog. If you've got back pain normally, go easy with these. This is something that I recommend for a lot of people anyway, but if you don't have good range into this, it can really aggravate a few things. Coming back down, sitting into your child's pose. And then coming back into your cobra or your upward dog. You want to engage your bum muscles as you're doing this, just to help support you. If you don't, you tend to get a bit jammed in your low back. You can cycle through them 3 or 4 times. Whatever feels good for you. If it does feel good as well, you can always add a little bit of movement into these stretches too. A little bit of a wiggle from side to side can feel really nice. The other thing as well that I'm going to do is walk my hands over to the right hand side of the mat, put my left hand on top of my right, and stretch through the side body on my left. Just sitting into that stretch again. Breathing out, letting your chest come down towards the ground if that feels good. I'm going to walk over to the other side of the mat, one hand on the ground, so my right hand touching the floor, and then my left hand's going to come down on top of that. I'm just getting a really, really nice stretch through my right side of my body. You can add a bit of extra stretch to it by sort of moving your hips to that side. So I'm stretching through the right, I've moved my hips right, letting my body sink down towards the floor. And then just swapping over. From there, I'm going to take it into a little bit of a glute stretch here, like a pigeon pose. So I'm going to bring my left foot underneath me. Get your shin sort of horizontal, doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't really matter as long as you feel the stretch into that left hip. If it feels good, you can block your foot with your hand so it doesn't move. And then I really like to make these stretches a bit more active, so I, as you can see, kind of wiggle backwards and forwards on top of this hip. If this isn't feeling good to you and you just want to sit there and stretch, that's cool too. So I'm going to spend a bit of time here in this sort of elevated pigeon pose where my chest is coming up. Gets into some aspects of the glute muscles, and then relax down. You can put your head on the mat if that feels good. You can just let it hang if that's what feels good for you. You can tuck the back leg in if you want to give yourself a little bit of extra support, or tuck your toes underneath if you just want to let everything hang and relax. As you're breathing out, try and let go of whatever tension you've got in your body, in your glutes specifically. You still need to keep yourself sort of tense in the shoulders to hold yourself up, unless you're a very, very mobile person. You can put your chest on the floor. I'm not that person, so my arms get a little bit of work right now. And then swap to your other side. So your right foot is going to come forward. Try and lift it so it's a bit more horizontal, but it, again, doesn't need to be perfect. And then putting your left hand on your right foot, just kind of wiggling into that hip a little bit. Ooh. And then when you're ready, you can lower down onto your forearms. If you've got the range, you can lower down onto your tummy, let your chest touch the floor. Just try and sort of relax through that right hip. Let go of the muscle tension. See if you can sit into this with a bit of ease. This shouldn't feel painful. If it does, work your way out of that stretch. You can put a pillow underneath your belly, or a bolster if you've got one, or support yourself a bit more with your forearms. So next I'm going to stretch through my quads and my hip flexors, the front of my hip, which feels really tight today. I've got a step. You could use a bed or the edge of a couch. This is actually called the couch stretch. The other thing you can do is, instead of having your back leg on this, you're going to have it up against a wall. So the general rule of thumb is the closer your knee is towards the thing that you're putting it up on, the harder it's going to be. Also, this is almost too tall for me. My foot's quite sort of extended. It's not the most comfortable, but just using what I've got today. So you want to sit up tall. You want to tuck your pelvis in. Imagine you got your tail and you're tucking it between your legs, so that you're not just sort of stretching in this very extended position. This is actually, like I said, a little bit tall for me. I'm going to bring my knee forward. I'm going to engage through my glute and tuck in my tailbone. I can already feel the stretching through my quad. So you don't want to sit into a stretch where you're really extending through your back. This should really be felt in the quad and in the hip flexor here. You can lean forward to extend that stretch, but you don't want to do it by bringing your chest backwards and arching your back. You want to try and stay in a straight line with your body here. Giving your quads some support from your glutes. So engaging them a little bit as much as you can. You want to sort of stay here for a few seconds, maybe 10, 20. I've just been waffling on. I don't really know how long I've been here. And then you're just going to contract your muscles downwards into the ground or backwards into whatever surface that you're elevated on. So you're going to hold that contraction for about 5 seconds, and then you're going to relax and sit further into your stretch. I'm going to cycle through that a couple of times. So you're going to contract, and then you're going to relax and go further into your stretch. Again, just making sure it's not your back that's stretching backwards. It's all coming from that hip. I'm going to swap legs. This is one that if you've got really tender knees, you can chuck up some towels or a cushion or something like that underneath your knees to give you some support, because it can be quite annoying for the wrong person. Fiddle around with your position a little bit until you've got it. Again, you really want to have your pelvis kind of tucked under rather than like extended through your low back. If you're not able to do that, bring your knee further forward. You'll probably be tighter on one leg than another. That's normal. And then after you've been sitting in the stretch for a bit, contracting through your muscles, whatever that means to you. If you're pushing down into the ground, if you're pushing back, if you're just tensing everything, whatever that means to you. And then relax, slide a bit further forward into that stretch. And then contract, holding that for about 5 seconds. And then relax, sliding further into that stretch. Trying to not slide through that by extending your low back, but by pushing forward. I'm gonna ditch your step or your box or whatever it is. Chuck it away for a minute. We're gonna go into a bit of a calf stretch. So I'm gonna do a bent knee calf stretch right now, focusing on the soleus muscle. You want to try and keep your heel on the ground, pushing into your foot with your body weight on your leg. Wiggle around until you start to feel some tension in that calf or some stretch in that calf. And because I'm a little bit of a fidget, as you can see, I never really like to just sit in a stretch. It feels really, really good to me to just kind of like move around a little bit, have a wiggle. By doing that, you get into a few different places. You get a little bit of like movement through the joint, which is really nice. A bit of loaded movement at its end of its range can be really, really comforting. Get you stretching into some places maybe you don't spend a lot of time. And also it gets you out of this idea of just like one way that a joint can move, whether it's forward or backwards, because your ankle actually has a little bit of side to side movement in it, a little bit of rocking inwards and outwards. It just kind of helps to mobilize the ankle in different ways, but also your foot bones in different ways. Then just swapping over to the other side. Trying to keep that heel on the ground, using your body weight to push your leg down into the ground, or push your foot down into the ground. So you can sit there at this end of range stretch like this if you want, but I don't know, I like this better. You can even wiggle side to side. There's not really any right or wrong. If it feels good, do it. If it doesn't feel good, ease off. And then lastly, we're going to do a hammy stretch where you're kind of pushing into the back of that leg there, coming in and out with your foot. Should feel good. And then we're going to alternate into an adductor stretch. So foot on the ground, leaning back onto this knee, coming in and out. Back into that hammy, lining up the hips, pointing forward, coming in and out with that foot there or with the knee, whatever it is that feels better to you. Should feel nice, shouldn't feel overly painful. If you're getting any pain in your bum doing this, then stop it. If it's painful, nothing overly wrong with doing anything that is uncomfortable for you, but if you're sitting in the end of range stretch and you're getting pain in your bum, especially if you've got any history of anything like a hamstring tendon issue, then find another stretch to do that feels really nice for you while we're doing this. This might not be the right thing for you today. Then alternating back into that adductor stretch. So same advice with this. If you're sitting in a stretch and it just isn't feeling good or you're getting pain, then just listen to what your body is telling you. Normally I like to tell people, especially if they've got an injury and I'm encouraging them to try and move, if you're getting sensations or discomfort that's around a level of like 3 out of 10, it's not getting any worse, it's not getting any better, it's just kind of hovering there, it's kind of that slight discomfort in the area that you're feeling it. Normally that's okay, but if you're at like 5 or 6, 7 out of 10, maybe just pull back a little bit. I'm gonna swap to the other side. Always one side that's tighter than the other. And then alternating back to your adductor stretch. Hands on the ground, body weight over that bent knee, coming backwards and forwards to put the tension on the inner thigh muscle. Back to your hammy. Back to your adductor. If any one of these positions feels good to you and you want to spend more time doing it, you can always pause the video and just spend a bit more time in these stretches. Or if one of them doesn't really do much for you and the other one does a lot, then just do that. Do what feels good. Back to the hammy one last time. And then back to the adductor. And I'm just going to end my stretch with a straight leg calf stretch. So leaning onto the bars here, you can use whatever you've got. You can use a wall, a table, whatever. Trying to keep that back heel on the ground. That's the leg that you're stretching. You can have a bit of a bent knee if it feels good, otherwise try and keep that back knee straight, and then leaning into that front knee to add more pressure to that stretch in the back, if it feels good. And just swap around. So trying to keep that back heel down, pressing forward, stretching through that calf. And then, just because I'm at the bar and I can never resist a good thoracic extension, keeping your hands on whatever you're using. You can definitely use a wall with flat hands here. Hips go back, chest comes down, engaging through the shoulders here still. So you've got a little bit of activation through that shoulder. And that makes your lats come into a really, really nice stretch as well. If it feels good, let your head hang down. If it doesn't, bring your head up. Do what feels good. Gently letting those ribs come down towards the ground. Well, that feels really great for me. I'm gonna hang out for a little bit and then I'm gonna ride my bike home again, and maybe I'll do some more stretching when I get there. I really hope you enjoyed this, a really nice little stretch session that we've had.